Tani, thank you very much. Now, on Rogue Traders, we always like to let you know what's happened to rogues who've passed through your screens, especially when they've been held to account or stopped in their tracks. You see, it's hard to argue your way out of trouble when your excuses are paper thin.
Hello, friends. Tonight, we're going to tell you about 4 firms we've previously featured on Rogue Traders, all of whom have now folded in different ways. Folded, you see. That's why it's appropriate that we've got Mark here from the British Origami Society. What's going to happen is I will explain the stories to Mark, and then he will illustrate them using the magic of origami, while accompanied by a lute. OK, Mark, first up, Westminster Recliners and Arise Mobility. We caught both these firms red-handed, pressure-selling beds and chairs to elderly and vulnerable people.
Let's start with mobility furniture company Westminster Recliners, run by Oliver Waters. He obviously got into the reclining chair business because of how far back the seats in his Audi went. He wanted others to experience something similar in their own homes. When we first encountered him back in 2016, he was already twice convicted for using misleading and aggressive sales practices. But that didn't stop one of his sales reps pressure selling a made-to-measure chair to Sheila Little.
I think the price that was thrown at me was about £4,500. And I just said, I can't do it.
But the rep was only just getting warmed up. After a call to the manager, the price was halved if Sheila went ahead that day.
I think it was a case of because we started so high and we came down and I was thinking, oh, what a clever girl, I've got a good deal out of this.
She hadn't. The chair was worth £1,500 tops. And when it arrived, it wasn't even made to measure.
To feel so vulnerable that someone's come into your home and taken advantage, it's a dreadful feeling.
That's what you get from textbook pressure selling. And when we called out a Westminster recliner rep, it was clear it was company policy. The price started high.
Good God.
We're half.
6,490?
Then, after a call to the manager, there was a whopper of a discount.
If we took that gap up in production, and if we went down to a year warranty, it's 1974.
Served up with a high dose of pressure.
Can't you do, say, a cheque for 645?
I'd rather ring you in the morning and let you know for sure.
Our actress had to tell the rep she wanted time to think on 27 occasions before, after nearly 3 hours, he finally got the message and conceded defeat. And when we caught up with Westminster Recliners boss Oliver Waters, he claimed he was giving up too.
You're not actually trading?
Correct.
You're stopping trading?
That's correct, yes.
As for Sheila, who'd been left with an overpriced and uncomfortable chair...
Wow, Sheila, here we are again. I'm pretty sure this is the same chair that I was sitting in, but that one is definitely different.
This is different. This is a replacement. I got my money back from the credit card company and I ordered this one from a mobility store.
Tell me then about the price. How did that compare to Westminster Recliners?
This one was £1,200.
So it's half the price?
Yes.
Well, I'm very pleased for you, Sheila. It's lovely to see you again. You look regal.
Nice. Well, thankfully, the company went into administration last March, so it and the chair have now been consigned to history.
Next up, Arise Mobility of Wolverhampton, run by Gopal Grewal and his brothers Jazz and Raj. As fully signed up members of the British Healthcare Trades Association, their customers should have been protected from cold calling and pressure sales tactics. But last year, alarm bells started to ring when we heard how they were contacting customers out of the blue.
I'm just calling today because we're conducting a National Health and Sleep Survey.
Yeah.
Would you mind helping with that?
Yeah, okay then.
We also want to give you an absolutely free presentation on one of our adjustable beds. Would that be okay?
Yeah, okay.
Now, the interesting thing about the BHTA is that they forbid cold calling of any type, whether it's on the phone or door to door. Off you pop. Go on. Away you go. Enough. They also specify that no salesperson may stay in anyone's home for longer than 3 hours on a visit.
But that is exactly what happened when we invited one of their sales reps round to a house stuffed with tiny cameras. Over 2 hours passed before the rep told us the cost of the bed he was trying to flog us.
How much is...
I'll show you.
How much would that cost?
I'm going to get my book out now.
What's the price?
Costs. My book.
And then another hour was spent on that familiar pressure sales tactic, starting with a very high price.
So it's 5400.
And gradually reducing it.
This would take us down to 3625 or whatever.
I went to give boss Gopal Gruwal a wake-up call, and as it turned out, a lesson in business vocabulary.
Hey, Go, how you doing? Matt Allwright, BBC Rogue Traders. Sure. A member of the BHTA, which is still cold calling. You know that goes against their code of conduct. You're cold calling people in their homes, specifically the elderly and vulnerable.
Not the elderly and vulnerable, but we do call them, yeah.
Well, the people that you're dealing with typically will be people who are elderly and vulnerable. There's certainly cases
Not necessarily.
that we've dealt with.
We have a profile of customer,
Yeah.
which we feel that obviously is suitable for our product, so we do call them, yeah.
You cold call them. You cold call them. You don't know them beforehand.
No, we don't know them beforehand.
So that's cold calling. Jazz, how are you?
And Gopal wasn't the only one who needed enlightening. Here's what operations manager Jazz had to say.
I'll tell you what cold calling is. If I went to knock on a street of doors, I was knocking on the doors and I was speaking to each person.
OK, BHTA, just so we're clear,
yes.
in their guidelines,
Yes.
say cold calling by telephone.
Let me get this right then. So, if somebody called you to said, you know, we do kitchens, for example.
Yes.
Is that not allowed?
That's cold calling. Yeah, absolutely, that's not allowed.
That lack of knowledge was to prove critical. In August 2017, the BHTA called Arise Mobility in for a disciplinary hearing. Cold calling, lack of pricing, transparency, and the amount of time they were spending in people's homes, all apparent breaches of their code of conduct. But 3 days before the date of the hearing, Arise Mobility chose to leave the BHTA and went into voluntary liquidation, folding. What have you got for me, Mark? Ooh, a rat. Explain your thinking.
An unwanted house guest, hard to get rid of.
So, 2 companies down, 2 left to curl up like flypaper. What else can the frenetic fingers of Mark fabricate? Don't go away. Everything will unfold in 15. We're employing the popular Japanese art of origami to show you how companies tend to fold up and fly away like the crane in autumn after they have an informal car park chat with me on Rogue Traders. We've already seen the decline of a couple of recliner companies. Now, it's time for a nasty sales firm who persuade you to paint your house to save hundreds on fuel bills. We gave them the boot, so cue the loot.
Next, a company that would call the elderly and vulnerable in order to create a fantasy around their product. That fantasy made them part with hundreds or thousands of pounds. What have you got for me, Mark?
Pick a colour.
That one there.
Mark has spent a lifetime increasing, while EnergySave spent its lifetime increasing its revenue by taking it from those who could ill afford it.
I'm going to get your money. Watch out, old lady.
Based in Ilkeston, Derbyshire, and run by boss Jason Rowan, EnergySave sold a dubious wall coating they claimed would save you big money on your heating bills. Audrey Wilson received a visit from them back in April last year, but she suffers from dementia and has no recollection of the salesman having called. Her son, Tony, told us about the visit.
The first day they visited, the carer was here preparing my mum's meal when the salesman appeared at the door. And the carer explained to the man that my mother had Alzheimer's and she wasn't in a position to make any decisions, and they were to take her off their mailing list and to go away and not come back.
So, despite the fact they were specifically told about your mum's Alzheimer's, this is not the house for you?
Yes.
What happened then?
They came back 3 days later when the carer wasn't here and saw my mother on her own, and they proceeded to sell her wall coating and took a deposit off her using a debit card of over £1,100.
EnergySave left Audrey with a bill for £2,300 for completely unnecessary work.
When I phoned the company on the Monday and said, you know, she had Alzheimer's, you know, it was a case of, well, so what, basically.
And disregard for their customers wasn't where it ended. We had suspicions about the product they were flogging too. We called them out to a house and asked building expert Barry Cross to watch them.
Wet walls are cold walls, and cold walls convey heat 3 times quicker.
But we haven't got wet walls.
So with our product on your walls, we guarantee you'll save up to a third on the energy bills. The average is about 29%.
Unbelievable. Completely unbelievable.
The salesman, Rob, checked our walls and he had some bad news about the state of our brickwork.
Now this is round the back. That's algae or moss. Algae and moss cannot grow on a dry surface, so your walls at the back are wet.
Oh, that's bad, is it?
It's a sign that you've got water in your walls. Wet walls are cold walls, so they're drawing that heating out all the time, so we're not here to scare you or anything like that.
But what did Barry make of their claims? He sees bricks as friends to be cherished and understood, not used as vehicles for dishonest gain. I've never heard him ever express that thought, but I'm fairly sure he would agree.
Barry, is there any way at all that some kind of external cream could improve the thermal qualities of a brick wall?
It simply does not, in my view, improve the insulation to the wall.
So, a bogus product with a hefty price tag being marketed via cold calls and sold to elderly, vulnerable people. Time to catch up with company owner Jason Rowan by the boot of his brilliant Bentley.
Jason Rowan, Matt Allwright, BBC Rogue Traders, how are you? It's a despicable little company you run, isn't it, that targets the over 55s.
Thousands and thousands of
Based on what? Why are they happy?
We've got the satisfaction notes that they're happy with the product, they're happy with what it does, they're happy with the energy-saving bills.
But you're massively misleading about the energy-saving bills because the product you have...
It saves up to 30% on the energy bills.
You can't possibly believe that. It's just not true.
But we can
it's
prove
a
scientifically proved.
It's a paint that goes on the outside. Your science is rubbish.
Says you.
Yes, says us, and also qualified experts.
So what are you going to do about this company?
I'm going to look into it completely. You've took me unawares, obviously. This is the first thing in the morning.
No, this is happening every day. This is a culture.
No, it's
this
not
is a culture, and that all comes back to you.
In January, EnergySave went into voluntary liquidation. Boss Jason Rowan said that Rogue Traders had ruined its reputation.
Oh, well. What have you got?
Oh, I like it. A unicorn. Mythical product, mythical beast.
3 companies, then, who have folded quicker than a teenager's laptop after we investigated, which means they're out of business. Or does it? We know that they can, as we say, rebirth. Choose folding as the easy way out and give themselves a chance to rebrand. Start operating again behind a shiny new mask. We need you. Tell us when you spot old rogues pulling the same shenanigans, and we will be onto it like white on rice. In the meantime, when is a child's garden slide a kitchen work surface? Now for our last Rogue Traders company tonight, brothers whose computer repair company is done and dusted because they've been busted.
One thing you must never mention to Mark is the idea of a paperless society. He gets very upset. Computers. Our next story is about 2 brothers who said that they would fix your PC for you. However, it didn't finish well. We had a massive standoff with their lawyers, and they ended up behind bars. Take it away.
Yes, back in 2012, we featured Click4PC, also known as Click Computers. Based in the West Midlands, they advertised across the country, giving the impression that they were a local service. We heard they'd been misdiagnosing and overcharging to fix people's PCs. So, we got ourselves a forensic computer expert, Andrew Frowen, who set up a simple fault on our computer, and then we asked them to fix it. After fitting a £200 hard drive that we didn't need, we then found out that our new hard drive was anything but new.
Clearly we've had a new hard drive put into the computer system, which was completely unnecessary. When we looked at that drive, it was apparent straight away that there's potentially illegal software on there. There's a copy of Microsoft Word, which is registered to a university, for instance, rather than the individual concerned.
Well, mangle my motherboard. Click4PC had given us a used hard drive, and get this, it contained sensitive data.
When we've taken a little bit more of a deeper look into the drive using some forensic software, we've seen that it's got data on relating to a residential care home that looks after young adults with learning disabilities. All sorts of very, very sensitive medical records on this computer system.
It's important to say, presumably you haven't started going into the detail of that. You're just aware that it's there.
Yes.
It's not
yes,
our place,
quite.
not for our eyes at all.
To find out more about how the company was run, we sent in someone to work undercover. And they quickly met the bosses, Amir and Yasser Rashid, who gave our mole a money-making masterclass.
Basically, work the cost out of the component and add 120. That's the best price. For you to be selfish, yeah. And earn your commission, you need to get the margin to 120.
Yasser agreed to an interview with me.
So, first question. Why does he tell staff to charge customers at least £120, regardless of what the fault is?
That's absolutely categorically not the case.
It's not the case?
Absolutely not.
Despite the quotes that we've seen from you on film, which are doing exactly what I described, which is telling engineers, or salesmen as you call them, to go for whatever they can, for £120 being the golden figure, which is clearly ignoring what the job actually requires.
Yeah, the quotes you're referring to are misrepresentations. You haven't shown the footage, and I'm happy to respond to specific questions.
How can you send out a recycled hard drive which contains information pertaining to young adults in a vulnerable position from a previous customer?
Okay. I mean, first, we'd like to say we do take data protection very seriously. What actually happened in that instance, that hard drive was formatted, but it wasn't formatted to the high enough standard. So someone using forensic technology, similar to what the FBI use, was able to access that data. That data was never accessible by a normal person.
The software that was used to gain that is widely available. I'm afraid this is grandstanding, it's evading the point. Yes,
That's not the case.
We've put clear allegations to you. You will see those allegations when the programme goes out, and it will be clear to everybody who's watching exactly the nature of your business.
We weren't the only ones interested in Yasser and Amir. Because they traded as a national company, they'd attracted the attentions of National Trading Standards, led by Phil Page.
We identified hundreds of different trading names or businesses that they were using in their advertisements, using 300-odd different addresses, false addresses all around the country. We identified 18 different advertising accounts. They were always just grabbing as much money as they possibly could. And it led to the agents being dishonest as well. And we've seen messages going to the brothers that talk about, for example, I've loosened her monitor cable, so she thinks her monitor's broken, and I've quoted her £120 for it. Laugh. So those were the type of individuals that we were dealing with.
3 years for Amir and 18 months for Yasser. That's what you get for conspiracy to defraud by false representation. You get a criminal record, and you get proper time behind bars.
It gives us no joy at all to see people go to prison, to see firms shut down and people lose their jobs. But if a company can't run honestly and ethically, something needs to change. Please keep letting us know what's coming up on your radar.